That's a day many preschool parents have been waiting for. The state is reopening its applications for its universal pre-K program.
And Denver7's Veronica Acosta joins us. Veronica, we're getting more insight into why the state decided to extend the process.
We are, and this is really great news for parents who are either applying or did apply for universal pre-K. Colorado actually going ahead and extending the timeline to match parents with providers. And this is after nearly 28,000 applications were actually submitted. In a letter to parents, the state said applications are going to be unlocked today, allowing you to make changes to your selections. More than 100 new providers offered pre-K after signups began in late January. So we spoke with Chalkbeat Colorado reporter Ann Shimke, who's been covering this issue. She tells us why the state decided to do this.
The state realized there were some errors in what providers offered in terms of the schedules and the number of seats. They asked providers to go back in and fix those mistakes. So what that means is families who applied early might have signed up for something that wasn't actually available.
And parents, we have some really key dates for you to remember here. On February 24th, that's when the final round of applications are going to be due. And then on March 30th, that's when you can expect to get some sort of email filling you in on provider details and the next steps in terms of enrollment. And remember, you can go ahead and reject the provider that you're given, but then you'll have to reapply and there will be fewer options likely at that point. We're in Denver this morning. I'm Veronica Acosta. Denver7.
Got a lot to figure out before August when it starts. Thank you, Veronica. Well, it's always pretty obvious when you're around somebody smoking a cigarette, the smell and visible smoke in the air. But what about when someone's vaping right next to you? Colorado's Department of Public Health and Environment has launched a new campaign to educate people about the dangers of secondhand vapor. I talked with the spokesperson for CDPHE's Clear the Air campaign. She told me a lot of people are exposed through no fault of their own. Maybe they work in a place where it's allowed, like a restaurant or bar, or people can be exposed if they live in multi-unit housing.
If there aren't any rules about smoking or vaping indoors, then some of that smoke and vapor could seep in from neighboring apartments and things like that, and you could be exposed there.
What are you being exposed to when you stand by someone who is vaping?
Well, there is this idea that secondhand vapor is just harmless water vapor, when in reality it's actually an aerosol that contains things like nicotine, heavy metals, and cancer-causing agents.
Yeah, you can add to that list formaldehyde and agents used in household cleaners. The campaign Let's Clear the Air encourages people to visit this website where you can take a quiz to understand your level of exposure. There are also tips on how to address smoking and vaping policies with your landlord if you live in multi-unit housing. All of this is at tobaccofree.org. They'll also be airing TV spots. And a new vending machine in Aurora is dispensing something no other vending machine has before: cannabis. ACE, which stands for Automated Cannabis Experience, rolled out a month ago at Terrapin Care Station in Aurora. The machine allows customers to purchase their products without interacting with bud tenders. The machine only takes cash and can hold more than 1,000 products. Customers just scan their ID, put in their order, and the machine does the rest. There are safeguards in place to make sure everyone who uses it is over the age of 21. That includes still checking in with a receptionist who then takes you to the back bud room where the machine is located.
A second child injured by a shooting in an El Paso County neighborhood has died. The El Paso County Sheriff's Office responded to that shooting in Falcon on February 5th. One child died that night and 4 others were sent to the hospital with injuries. The Sheriff's Office is now confirming the second child died yesterday. Investigators are still looking into the incident, but they say that this was an isolated event. A man won't face charges for killing and shooting a 12-year-old boy who allegedly stole his car. The Denver District Attorney's Office says that they were unable to prove any guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Last month, the man told police he used an app to track his car at West 12th and North Decatur. He says he exchanged gunfire with people inside. The boy drove the car to West 10th and officers found him with a gunshot wound. He died at the hospital.
East High School's principal says a weapon was taken away from a student, and our partners at the Denver Post report it happened on Wednesday, a day after the school was closed after a student was shot nearby. DPS didn't confirm whether the weapon that was taken from the student was a gun, but in a letter to families, they wrote that the school's increased security allowed officials to identify and remove the student and the weapon without any threat to other students and staff. Meanwhile, 16-year-old Luis Garcia An East High School student is still in the hospital 4 days after he was shot on Monday. We spoke with his older brother, Santos, who has been by his side all week. Garcia says his little brother was not specifically targeted in that shooting. A GoFundMe page has already raised more than $100,000, but they said they'll need about 3 times that much to cover medical bills.
Whatever people could help us with makes a difference. So I'm just trying to do as much as I can so once my brother gets better, he can have a better life.
Denver police arrested 2 suspects after they crashed a stolen vehicle after the shooting, but so far those suspects have not been charged.
The ski patrol and paramedics around Loveland Ski Area are trying to unionize so that they can get better pay. The Colorado Sun reports 70% of the 49 patrollers and paramedics signed a petition. It was sent to the National Labor Relations Board. In a few weeks, they'll vote to move forward. Supporters say higher wages through bargaining would help retain experienced staff to help keep everyone safer.
We are heading into President's Day weekend and coming off a fresh round of snow, but you're out of luck at A Basin if you don't already have a ticket. The resort is sold out Saturday and Sunday. And if you're planning to ski or snowboard anywhere, you probably want to leave yesterday, Jason. It's going to be busy out there.
Yeah, it's already busy right now, and CDOT has some numbers, and I've been looking at some of those numbers, and unfortunately, it's going to be a long one for you, at least today. All right, so January, more than 1.1 million drivers traveled through the Eisenhower-Johnson tunnels. The average more than 36,000 drivers a day. That's the highest count since January of 2020, right before the start of the pandemic, which means the pandemic drop in traffic volume pretty much over on I-70. Last February, partly due to the President's Day weekend, which is always busy, the average traffic count was 38,000 vehicles a day. CDOT believes it's going to be a lot higher this year. They also tell me they've identified Glenwood Canyon and Vail Pass as 2 of the most challenging sections of I-70 in the winter. It's speeding and it's poor tires with inadequate tread that are leading to these crashes, especially in Glenwood Canyon, where we've seen a lot of semi crashes, other crashes, and then you trap all those folks in Glenwood Springs.
Makes me glad I got my snow tires, but sometimes you need even more than that to be okay up there.
Right. Well, you do sometimes need chains, especially for the truckers and the commercial vehicles.
All right, Jason, thanks. With the U.S. debt ceiling debate pressing on in our nation's capital, you may have questions about how it impacts you. Coming up, we're breaking down what the debt ceiling is and the economic changes that could be coming.
Plus, a Colorado classroom is preparing for astronauts, the local program that's educating the next generation of space explorers.